Hi, and welcome to That's My Purse podcast, all about King of the Hill. I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy.
So, Jimmy, how has your past week, weekend, all that good stuff been?
Okay, so I've recently dived into a new thing. Um, I'm really into colognes now. Cause I never
Huh.
really been into colognes before. Um, Not that I'm a horrible smelling person. It's just I just put deodorant on and I have. So I don't know if this is resonates with anyone, you or any of the listeners. But I've been wearing the same, not the same bottle, but the same brand of cologne since high school. And that
Hmm.
brand is Tim McGraw's cologne. um, and I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time I get an adult cologne. And my Instagram has been flooded with uh, this box called Scent Bird. It's where you buy like testers of colognes. So
Interesting.
you don't buy the whole bottle, you buy like a sample size of it for fractions of the price. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna spend $100 and I'm gonna buy a whole bunch of testers. So now I have like 10 different colognes that I've been
Nothing wrong with
trying
that.
out. So I've been like really into it. I used to be like all colognes smell the same, but now that I've have 10 and I've been like rotating them and sniffing them and stuff, I notice the subtle like differences of them.
Differences.
Yeah, so I I'm I don't know if I'm gonna be a cologne guy, but I'm starting to get into colognes. So that is my new thing, I guess, for the time being.
I don't think I've worn cologne since high school, now that I think about it. Or not middle school, high school. I think I started in middle school, maybe like when I was 14 or whatever. And then I wore it occasionally in high school and some in college. And then I just don't. I just wear like deodorant. I don't know. I've just never been a big. It's same thing with perfumes. I've never been a big fan of like the perfume smells or anything like that. Like I just always feel like sometimes they're too. What's the word I'm looking for? Too like strong a
Chemically?
lot of the time.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same way. I put cologne on when I go out on dates, is when I would used to like. So I wouldn't wear cologne all the time, but when I go out on dates, I would put some cologne on. Um, and I work in a kitchen for a living, so I don't wear any fragrance. Like I don't wear any fragrances. It kind of just, that's like an unspoken rule because it messes with everyone's smell if you smell like
Hmm.
something. So no one wears anything. But now I'm starting to be like a cologne guy. So if I'll go out hanging with friends or if I know we're going to dinner, I'll put on a little cologne, and now I'm like the cologne. I'm not the cologne guy. No one's calling me that, but I'm starting to dabble in that world.
All right, fair enough. Well, if you find anything that's good, let me know. I might could decide to change my mind.
I mean, I am obsessed with oh man, what is the name of it? It's called Irish Tweed Green, I believe. I forgot the name of the brand. Irish Tweed Cologne. Let me see. Oh, the brand is Creed, like the band. I thought it was the band at first when I heard this, but the brand is Creed and the scent is called Green Irish Tweed, and I like it a
Hmm.
lot. That's the one I've been wearing kind of all the time. So I don't know. Maybe that would be something you would like.
Yeah, maybe. I've always been the type of person who doesn't use scented soap. Well, I wouldn't say I don't use scented soaps, but they have like very, very light scent. It's not like a heavy scent or whatever. I don't. I use fragrant free laundry detergent, all that stuff. So like I'm just this weird person when it comes to scents and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to walk around smelling like a flower or anything like that. I just you know that's kind of always been my thing.
Oh yeah, I understand that. Though I love if you got a watermelon soap, I'm definitely into it. I love watermelon scented stuff. Um, there's this funny story of what happened. So this weekend I was walking around the mall with my friends, and one of our friends had to go buy some like body wash and stuff for his wife. So we walked into bed, or what is it called, Bath and Body Works,
Yeah.
and we were in there. And our other friend, I don't know what was up with him, but he we were just like walking around looking at the things, and then he's like, I think I'll buy some hand soap. And then the one of the salespeople turns around, it's like, what kind of hand soap would you like? Like, I heard you're shopping for hand soap. He's like, I need a manly scent. He's like, do you have any manly scents here? And then she replied, all our soaps are gender neutral. And
Good answer.
I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, why do you have to request manly soaps, and now why are all my soaps genderless? I was just like, oh, this is so awkward. But I did sniff every candle in that place, so maybe I'm part of the problem.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I think like historically with the Victoria's Secrets and the all of that stuff, most like scents, whether it be a candle or body soap or bath bomb or whatever, definitely geared towards women with like maybe they have like a little corner for the dudes in the store or whatever. Now there seems to be like this whole marketplace over the past maybe 10, 15 years of manly manly scented things, so to speak. So like you can get a candle that smells like yard clipping or leather or whatever, and it's like, yeah, this smells like a man's place, a new car smell candle and stuff, which I also think is kind of weird because I'm like, that's more of a stereotype than anything else. But okay, I
Yeah.
get it. I guess most men aren't going to be like, oh, I can't wait to have a honey lavender scent in my garage or whatever. But still, and yeah, I think there are a lot of scents that are gender neutral, like orange or pine. Like there's nothing gendered in my mind about either of them.
I don't know. I was telling my friend this and the salesperson, but I was like, you know, I personally go with the more fun soaps smells, like the mangoes and the like ocean breeze, or there was one that was champagne there. Uh, for my like in my personal bathroom hand soap, cause why not have some fun? I feel like I guess you know what though. At the end of the day, it's all personal tastes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do I like smelling? Like, I don't want my body to smell like papayas all day long. But when I'm at home and I wash my hands, I don't mind the papaya scent. So
Yeah, that's kind of my thought too. It's like, if you want to smell like roses or smell like leather or whatever, that's a you thing. Now, granted, don't, and this goes for any scent, like even a pleasant scent, don't overdo it because I don't want to be overpowered by your smell. But if that's your thing, that's your thing.
yeah. Oh man, before I move on, didn't KFC make their own cologne? Like
Yes, and if
what?
I'm not
Like
mistaken,
the chicken scented or something like that?
yeah, they made a chicken scented one, and if I'm not mistaken, they also made a oh gosh, they made a nail polish that it was flavored, if I'm not mistaken, a chicken flavored nail polish that only sold in China. I don't think they sold it here.
I remember because they do it every year, right? Like around Christmas, they make all this weird stuff. Because then they do the Yule log that's supposed to smell like chicken.
Yep. I mean, can you blame them? If it's going to make you money, might as well do it.
Oh
I
man,
feel
I
like
cannot
it's
find
gimmicky
it.
though.
I cannot find it on eBay.
Speaking of like weird things that stores sell, chicken stores sell. I went skiing last weekend, the weekend before, whatever. I can't remember. They're all running together, and it's about a 4 or 5 hour drive from San Francisco to Tahoe, depending on when you leave, how much traffic you hit, all that stuff, what kind of breaks you take. And I forget where, but like in a small town in California, we stopped at Chick-fil-A because it was right off the highway. And we went and ate there. And we saw like in the corner, they had this like display or this advertisement that was like, have your wedding catered by Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, I'm of two minds on this one because on one hand it's like that's not the classiest thing in the world. But on the other hand, their sandwiches are pretty good. So
Okay, if I'm getting my wedding catered, I know what I would love. I would love if it. Man, this is tough. If it has to be fast food, I don't know. That's now it's tough because I wanted. You know? Do you remember You know Freebirds, right? You've been to Freebirds
yeah,
burritos. I don't know if it's like a. I do think it's nationwide. I don't know.
I think it's only in the Texas area.
Is
Like I
it?
know it's based in Austin, and I know that there was. I don't know if there still is, but there was a location in San Antonio. It's probably still there
Why do they call it Freebird's World Burrito then?
because you. Oh well, no. It looks like it's based in Santa Barbara, according to this. Oh no, wait. It was founded in Santa Barbara. Now it's headquartered in Austin. Um, let's see. Well, let's see where all the locations are because I could have
Oh,
sworn it was
they're
a
all in
Texas thing.
Texas. They're all just in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, you can put down. You
Oh
can
wait, the nearest
there.
locations are all in Texas.
Looks like they all are, unless on the other side of the world. Because as I zoom out of the map, it's all Texas.
Yeah, they're just nope. None on the world. They let you. Are you on their website?
Yeah, so if you go to locations part, they have like this 3D globe of the world,
You know,
and
you
you
can
can like
spin it,
spit,
and there's like none of them anywhere else.
except for Texas. Yep.
Okay, so for all our non-Texas listeners, there's this burrito place called Freebirds. It's Chipotle-esque, but it's kind of more hippy dippy. Like you can have barbecue sauce, and they have Spanish rice and like carnitas, like just a whole bunch of different meats. It's kind of like unusual stuff that you wouldn't normally put in a burrito. I would love them to cater my wedding, like a build your own burrito bar or something like that would be fun.
That would be interesting. I mean, I've seen weddings run the gamut. I've never. I guess that's not true. I guess it depends on what you mean by fancy. I don't think I've ever been to a super fancy wedding where, like, I guess they dropped 100K on it or whatever. Um, I've been. I guess I've been to a wedding in Napa, which it could easily run six figures, though not necessarily. I think the average cost of a wedding nowadays is in the $30,000 figure, but I've seen like the super cheap. We're gonna cater our own wedding. I've seen the more expensive one, everything in between. And honestly, my thought, and maybe it's just because I'm not married or whatever, but I'm like, why do we stress over it? Because nobody remembers any of it anyway. At the end, like nobody is like, oh, you remember you had that sweet potato pie at your wedding, and oh, you had the green flowers or whatever. Like nobody remembers anything. So it's always funny how everybody just stresses over planning stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess, I always say this. I don't ever say this to anyone who's like actively planning their wedding, but I say it just in general. Like, weddings are very expensive. You should just you need to do it for yourself. Like have fun. Like have the food you want to eat. Have the music you want to be played there. Like have the dress or the clothes you want. Like if you want it casual, have it casual. Like it's a party at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day and like don't feel so hung up on tradition or like what people think of or what people are putting on you for a wedding. Think of it as like I'm having a big party to celebrate today. So what do I want at this party?
Fair.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's kind
So,
of how I see it too.
so, but you were on a trip this week. Like, did you do anything else like fun?
Nah, I just hung out in the mountain for a little bit skiing, which is fun in itself. Got my first skiing for the season, so that's nice. But yeah, it was pretty fun. I always enjoy it every time I go. I've never been like, oh man, I really wish I did. Well, I guess if I got injured, I'd be like, I wish I didn't go. But generally speaking, I'm never like, oh god, I wish I didn't go.
Yeah, I don't know. Man, I haven't been skiing since high school, so maybe I should go sometime. Maybe we should plan a ski trip.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been a King of the Hill ski episode. I'm like 90% sure. Though they could probably bring it back in the reboot or the continuation, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. You know what? We need our listeners to get us into a podcast festival. Are those things? Does that exist? Is that a thing? podcast
Yeah, I
festival?
think there's like a pod con or something.
Is it in a snowy area?
I don't know. I know the SF Sketchfest is also like a big one that does a lot of comedy podcasts, but
Oh my gosh. Funny story about SF Sketchfest. I'm friends with one of the people who runs it.
nice.
Well, we've never met in person, but we talked a lot. Like, they followed me on Instagram and then I followed them back. And now we play Pokemon Go together. So now we chat about our Pokemons. But
Fun.
I was always telling him I need to get down. Like, I need to go to there. But it runs like 2 weeks long, right? Or it's like 2 or 3
Yeah, it's a
weeks
pretty
long.
long run.
Yeah. So if it was like a couple days, I feel like I would feel more like that's the week I go. But maybe we should hold our own festival, a King of the
There we
Hill
go. I like the
festival.
idea.
What would it be called though? Before we get on to the episode,
Arlen Con, short and simple to the
Arlington.
point.
Should it be in Texas? I feel like it has to be in Texas though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll get on it. I don't know who I have to call. Can I do it or will I get sued?
We probably want to check with the studio first, but I'm sure they won't mind.
All right, all right. I'm working on that, but I guess we got more important business to do today.
Yes, today we are going to be talking about episode 50. Man, we've done 50 of these. It's hard to believe. So, episode 50, which is an early episode called Propane Boom. I kind of referred to them as Propane Boom 1 and 2 on the last episode, but they're actually called Propane Boom and Death of a Propane Salesman. But they are like a 1 and 2 parter. So, kind of works. So this is season 2, episode 23, the last episode of season 2. And really, a lot of the episodes in the earlier seasons were very Hank heavy, though there were a few that were Bobby or Peggy. But yeah, so in this one, we have kind of like this opening before the actual theme song where Hank's at the Mega-Lo-Mart and he's trying to buy batteries. And it's kind of the stereotype of the dumb teenage kid who's working at the store or whatever is like not being super helpful. Hank is like, oh, I need some D batteries. And he's like, they're in aisle 30. Hank's like, this is aisle 30. Aisle 15. Wait, no, 3. And Hank's like, stop guessing. You either know or you don't. And he's like, sir, stop yelling at me. I'm trying to help you. And walks away. And Hank tries to get help from other staffers and they run away from him, which either one, they're lazy, or two, Hank just has a bad reputation in the area. Like that was my initial thought when I saw all this was like, why does everybody run from him? Either they just hire like the worst staff ever, or everybody just is tired of dealing with him. Anyway, he runs into an employee who's like, oh, you want batteries? They're through this door. And he points to like a door at the other end of the store. And Hank's like, oh, thank you. And he goes out there and it's a door leading to the outside of Mega-Lo-Mart, like the back lot, and it doesn't open from the outside, or at least not without a key. And so Hank winds up being sent out of the store, and he's like, I hate this place.
Well, Mega-Lo-Mart is run by teenagers, right? I
No, there's a few episodes where you see like senior managers or whatever who were roughly Hank's age.
I will say the what I equivalent to like, and I feel like everyone knows what I'm talking about is like a really bad Walmart. Like we've all been in like that bad Walmart. That's what I
Uh
feel like
huh.
Mega-Lo-Mart is, the service. Like it's people who like don't want to work there, but they're like, what else am I doing? Like this is a stepping stone to whatever they need to do, and it's miserable.
Yeah. It shows up in a lot of the episodes, but when Hank's never been a big fan. We cut over to Luann, and it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition compared to the last episode because we have her becoming a certified beautician, but in this episode, she's still in beauty school and she's kind of not doing so well. I don't want to necessarily say she's failing out, but she's definitely not doing well. And the teacher is like, one bad haircut can cost somebody their job or get them beat up. That's why we practice on senior citizens. And Luann's like, can I get a new senior citizen? Mine keeps slipping out of the chair. And it's like, Luann, some of them can still hear you. Come to my office. And it's like, Luann, we're still missing like the $300 tuition payment. It's like, oh, I mailed it. And it's like, okay, cool. We'll just sit here and wait for it to come in. And after a few uncomfortable moments, Luann's like, I didn't mail it. And um, so back at the house, she's talking to Buckley, who's her boyfriend at this time. I don't think we've mentioned him much in the past. Uh, and she's like, "Yeah, I can't continue at beauty school if I don't pay the tuition. The tuition's $300." And Bucky's like, "Oh, I only have $400, but I'm using that to get a new trampoline. I mean, my own trampoline's fine, but you know." And Luann's just kind of like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, whatever." It's kind of funny. Buckley, I mean, granted, Buckley's what, probably 23, 25, or whatever. So I don't expect a ton of self awareness from him, but still, it's funny.
Do you help Luann out? I feel like this is kind of what we were talking about before we started recording. But like, I don't know. How long have they been dating? You know?
It depends. I'm always hesitant. Like if they've been dating for a while, then sure. I'm always hesitant in my own personal life about helping somebody that I've just met. Like on anything major, like a meal, okay, whatever, that's fine. But if somebody was like, "Pay my rent" or something like that, I'd be like, no.
Yeah. Man, this is a rough spot for me. You know what? If I was Luann's boyfriend and I had $400 for my new trampoline, I would give her the 300. Just cause like a trampoline doesn't seem very priority for me. But you know what? It's Buckley, and then we wouldn't have a story if he gave her the 300. So
That's
I
true.
allow it. I allow it.
In the living room, Peggy and Hank are sitting in their chairs, and Peggy's like, "Okay, try turning it on." And Hank turns on the TV, and it's some kind of lady commercial talking about freshness and stuff like that. So that's making Hank uncomfortable. And you hear Bobby saying, "Can I come in now?" And Hank's like, "No, Bobby, stay in the kitchen," which is showing what kind of a prude Hank is. Mega-Lo-Mart commercial comes out with Chuck Mangione, and he's talking about all the great deals there. And he's like, "Now we're selling propane and propane accessories, and it feels so good." And Hank's like, "Propane at Mega-Lo-Mart?" And Peggy's like, "Oh, Bobby, leave the room." And Hank just yells, "You bastards!" At Strickland Propane, everybody is chatting because they're a little worried because like now there's new competition in the area, and you know, Hank's like, "Oh, Buck has some ideas, so let's hear." And Buck's like, "Oh, you know, there's no way we could beat them on prices, but Debbie and I stayed late last night, and then afterwards we came up with a plan. What we're going to do is we're going to beat Mega-Lo-Mart by giving them the personal touch, you know, giving our customers the personal touch. I'm going to introduce service with a hug." And at first, Hank thinks he's joking, only to realize that he's not. The next day, a guy comes in, and Hank's like, "Hey, welcome to Strickland Propane, service with the hug." And he gives him like, not even like the friend or brother hug. He pretty much just like at arm's length taps the guy on his shoulders. But yeah, Hank's like, "Oh, sorry. Sorry, that was awkward for both of us. How can I help you?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, do you honor Mega-Lo-Mart coupons?" And he's like, "No, but for pennies more, you can get the same propane, but with a Strickland service." He's like, "How many more pennies?" "Several hundred." The guy just walks out, and Hank's like, "I hugged you."
Do you feel like that hug is like how I don't know. I imagine that's how Cotton hugged Hank.
Probably.
And he's
Hank is
like,
very repressed.
yeah, so it's it's pretty interesting, but in all honesty, that is the way to go. You know, when you're a local business competing with something like a mega store, you know, you have
Mm-hmm.
to like it's the personal touch. And I'm so surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised because it's part of the show, but in my mind, I'm like, man, Hank's really good at what he does. Like, he is so personable, like, with every customer. Like, he knows them. He knows, like, when they usually get their tanks refilled and stuff like that. I can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that discount must be really good for them to have to leave.
Generally speaking, I mean, that tends to be the case. Like, even myself, you know, if you need something, you need something. I'll go to a big mega store if I need something in a pinch, and they're the only ones who have it. But generally speaking, I try to go to local shops, and I know I'm going to pay a little bit more because I can't get the bulk discount. But you know, I usually run into the same who are working there, and they get to know you and everything like that. Like I've never had a personalized experience at a Starbucks, but I've had plenty personalized experience at local coffee shops, for example.
Yeah, I will. I mean, quick story. It was during a World Cup, and I go to this like small taco joint, and I always get my breakfast tacos there. And we were having a watch party for the World Cup, so I went and I bought like 50 breakfast tacos. What I didn't remember was that something happened to my debit card, and it got deactivated. So I needed to pick up a new one that day. So I wasn't able to pay for it. But the lady was like, "You come here so often. I know you're good for it." So she gave me the tacos. And then I did come back later that day to pay for them. But you don't get that with the mega store. They don't just like
Mm-mm,
say you're good for it.
absolutely not. So the next day, Hank and Bobby go to Mega-Lo-Mart, not to actually shop, but to like pretend shop and I don't know, put ideas into people's heads. So they're walking around and like, yeah, the Wagner Char King is more expensive here, but if you go to Strickland Propane at 125 Los Gatos Road, you can get the Wagner Char King and a spatula and a friend, a good spatula. Like how it's a good spatula, not a good friend. Buckley comes up and he's like, "Hey, you need to be quiet. The gas is very, very, I guess, sensitive or whatever." And Hank's like, "I want to talk circles around your manager. Please bring him here." And Buckley points to his name tag and it shows that he's the propane manager because they don't want him making keys anymore. And he's like, "I don't know if I want to laugh or vomit." At the yard, Dale's yard, they're grilling, and Hank's like, "Oh, thank you for being loyal customers. I know Megalo-Mart's cheaper and stuff." It's like, "Hey, what has it been, Dale? Been like 5 or 6 grills? Are you ready to get a new tank?" He's like, "Oh no, I'm
Oh,
fine." And Hank's like, "Oh, it's full." Huh. And he starts hammering it, thinking like, "Oh, maybe the gauge is broken." And then the Strickland sticker falls off to reveal that it's a Megalo-Mart tank. And he's like, "Dale, you're buying from Mega-Lo-Mart." And then Dale runs away, jumps over the fence. At night, the Hills are in their bed and they're both working on stuff. Peggy's like, "Oh, I'm changing the seating chart. Mr. Hernandez is no longer going to be hiding for me anymore." And Hank's trying to do his own thing, coming up with a battle plan, not really paying attention. Luann comes in, is like, "Can I come in?" And Peggy's like, "Yes." Hank's like, "No." She comes in. It's like, "I don't want to ask you for money." And Hank's like, "That's a good instinct." She's like, "See, I need $300 to go to beauty school, but I don't have it. And I can't make $300 until I become a famous Hollywood hairstylist, which I can't do until I go to beauty school." And Hank's just like, "Yeah, that's quite a dilemma you're in." Oh, so Hank was very dismissive. Next day, Hank goes to Strickland and he's like, "I know we can't compete with prices, but maybe we can get our own spokesperson. I've been looking up this Zamfir fella. He's sold more records worldwide than the Beatles. Better music too." And Buck is just like, "Look, Hank, I'm shutting down this branch. I have 4 other branches to think about, so I need to, cut off a finger to save the hand." And Hank's like, "Oh man," he's taken aback because he's realized he's being let go, and he's like, "Yeah, I can't even afford to give you severance, but I can give you 5 minutes at the office supply cabinet." Then you
oh,
see
Joe.
Joe Jack in there. He's like, "You should make a basket out of your shirt, honey."
Okay, what office
Uh,
supplies are you going for first?
Depends on what's in there. I mean, I could always use some pens, ink. That would be a good one. Ink is expensive.
I'm definitely trying to take like hole puncher, 3 hole punchers, staplers, things I can sell on like the office supply black market.
Yeah, because I guess, well, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an office supply black market now that I think about it.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you also imagine a guy in a trench coat and he opens and he's like just like 1 hole punchers? He's like, "Do you want 8 hole
One
punchers?"
hole punchers and pens and stuff. It's like, what do you need?
Those novelty giant paper clips. He's like, "I got those." No, but I'm surprised there's even a severance package plan at Strickland. Like there was one before the downfall.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know labor laws, but I don't think you need to actually pay severance to somebody that you let go. It's more of just a sign of goodwill. I could be 100% wrong. I have no idea what the laws are.
I wonder if that's something Buck would have said regardless. Like I can't afford to do the severance, but have at it in there.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of episodes where Buck's like, "Oh, I can't afford to give you guys health insurance, so we're giving you this party instead, or whatever." So, I think it's Buck is just cost cutting or whatever.
I was also thinking. Every time see this episode, I think about this. Like Buck spends a lot of time at the Arlen location. Isn't this the best? Like, well, I guess the Mega-Lo-Mart. Never mind. I've solved it myself. You got to cut a finger to save
Yeah,
a hand or whatever he said.
like I always figured like that was the best performing one. You rarely see the other locations; you just hear them mentioned. But at the same time, like I guess this one's competing with Mega-Lo-Mart directly, and that's why it's struggling the most. Like even if it's getting like no sales, then that's terrible. I also like the fact that Hank is like, we can't afford to compete with prices, but we can get a spokesperson. Like that, spokespeople aren't cheap. Now, Grant, I don't know that they're spending a ton of money on Chuck Mangione, but even if they did get Sam Fear, it's not going to be like a 50 grand deal or whatever. I think when you think about that, like, oh, we're going to put up 50 grand for a spokesperson, just ballparking a figure out there. It's like, well, couldn't you just use that to reduce your costs or something like that? And also, will having another spokesperson actually result in more sales? Like, are people going to Mega-Lo-Mart because of Chuck Mangione, or are they going there because it's cheaper?
I think Chuck Mangione is like. Okay, first of all, is Chuck Mangione real?
Yes, he is a real person.
Okay. I just was thinking about that today while I rewatched the episodes, and I did not Google it because I was like, I'm just gonna bring it up during the recording today. But I've always thought he was made up for the show.
Yep, he's real and he's still alive. He's 82 years old.
Oh man, we got to get him for whatever we. What are we calling it? Arlington?
Yep.
He's got to play, right?
Oh yeah, if we do Form Marlon Khan, he definitely has to play.
Oh my gosh, he looks like he looks on the show.
I always wondered if like maybe I need to look it up or something. I always wondered if like Mike Judge just had like a long running friendship with Chuck Mangione or whatever. Like, how did they get him to be a regular on the TV show?
And he voices
I
himself?
just Yeah, it just seems very random that they got him on there.
Oh man. Or they were like, we need like a really obscure person.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh man. Okay. My mind has been blown. I don't even know what I was thinking of. Oh, I remember now. Why doesn't Buck just move Hank to another location? Hank is like such a great salesperson. Like he would be
I have
like
no idea.
valuable in any other location.
No idea.
Okay. Well, that's my 2 cents on this. My mind is still blown about Chuck Mangione being real.
Yep. Zamfir is real too, for what it's worth.
That I believe. That I believe.
So Hank's upset and he's throwing batteries at the Mega-Lo-Mart because it cost him his job. He continues throwing them, but then he makes like a comment, it's like, man, you get a lot of batteries for $4. The next day, Hank is pouring Megalo ketchup down the drain because he wants to get rid of anything that's Megalo-Mart. And Bobby comes in, he's like, what should I do with this box of tissues? And Hank's like, is it from Mega-Lo-Mart? And he's like, no, but it was touching something. And Hank's like, throw it out. But I don't know if you were paying attention. The box of tissues clearly says Megalo
Wiggle.
tissues on them. So it's funny. But yeah, Peggy comes out. She's like, don't worry. I've been preparing for this exact moment. And Hank's like, taken aback by it. She's like, hey, we married for better and worse. So during the good times, I was preparing for worse. I've been saving all of our curtains so I can make clothes for Bobby. We'll grow our own vegetables and eat carrots for dessert. And Hank's like, Dad. And then Peggy's like, I'm the breadwinner now. And Hank gets mad. And no, then Peggy's like, well, that doesn't mean you're the bread loser. We're all winners here.
That's not much of a plan, right? Like
No.
you think when she says that she's been like, I've actually been saving some money aside. We have a nest egg here we can dive into. She's like come up with like if the zombie apocalypse happened, this is like what we have to do. Plan.
Yeah, I think that like they should, and with as thrifty as Hank is, and that we learn in the later episodes, you would assume that he would have like, I don't know, 2 months of money set aside to at least get by or whatever. Now, I guess it is arguable that they can, say, well, we want to stretch that money as far as possible, so not spend as much on the other things.
True. Or I mean, Hank doesn't seem to be worried at all. Maybe it's just like Peggy blowing it all up in her mind. You know, like she's thinking about like, what are we gonna do 5 years from now?
Yeah, probably. Hank's at home watching the Spanish soap opera, and he's like, "Oh, why is the Pope holding that gun?" It's like, "That's not the Pope. That's Monsignor Martinez." And Hank's reading the classified ads, and he comes across one. It's like, looking for one hardworking man to replace four who weren't. And he's like, look no further, here I am. He goes into, I guess, this presentation room, and there's a bunch of people there. So it's not a typical job interview by any stretch of the imagination. It's just two guys giving a presentation about, hey, you're going to be selling opportunity, and you can, for an initial investment of $300, you can make $60,000 or as much as $200,000. It's all up to you. So it's clear it's one of those multi-level marketing schemes or whatever. Uh, and Hank's like, so what's in the box? It's like, in the box are a bunch of smaller boxes that are full of opportunities. Like, oh, are we selling steak knives? And there's like, no, you're selling steak knives. You, like the Power of You type of thing. I don't know if you've ever accidentally gone to one of those. In my younger years, I have, because I have had people be like, oh hey, there's a party going on, you should come over or something, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll go to a party. And then you go there, and all of a sudden it's like an MLM presentation of some sort.
Okay, I'm going to tell this story because I know they don't listen to this. But my aunt is in an what do they call it? MLM, multi-level,
MLM.
yeah, MLM. She is in a energy one where they sell you energy. So she's in that, and so I was always like, I think she's doing that, but I don't know for sure. And then she invited me like to go with her to one of like these presentations, and I went, and it clearly was what like I wonder if they're all like that, but I feel like there's no way around saying like we need you to recruit more people, and you make money. Like there's no way of hiding the pyramid in my mind.
Yep.
But it turned out to be that, which I was very upset that like I sat through that whole thing and like they didn't give me any. You know, like oh wait, it's only for timeshares, right? That they give you stuff.
Yeah, a lot of times they'll do that. Like if they'll give you like a free weekend or something, you just have to sit through a timeshare presentation, and they do go for the hard sale. I've heard friends who've done it who've said like, if you are able to say no, like if you are able to tell yourself no and get through whatever sales tactic, it's actually a good thing because you get a free weekend to hang out somewhere. But what happens is a lot of people go in telling themselves, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, and then they keep the sales tactic, and they're like, all right, I'll buy 2 weekends or something like that.
Wait, you can just buy like a weekend?
I mean, I don't know how they break it down, but they have different levels to get you to do it.
Huh. See, now I should not go. I feel like now I already got the thing in my mind. I'm totally gonna be a sucker for it. Regardless, what were we talking about? Oh, hey, yeah. So I guess I have been to one. Long story short.
Hank goes back home, and Luann's like, Uncle Hank, what's a BTU? And Hank's like, British thermal unit. It's like, huh, so it doesn't have bacon in it. And Hank kind of laughs, like, oh, you're reading one of my propane books. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to be a propane salesperson like you. And Hank, being mean, is like, well, why don't you also just fly around the world in a weather balloon? And it's like, well, Buckley at Mega-Lo-Mart said he'd give me a job. And Hank's like, well, why don't you go down to hell and work for the devil? And she's like, oh, I'm happy. You better be happy that I don't have super brain powers, or else you'd be in a million pieces right now. In the alley, Hank's like, oh man, I've answered 40 classified ads and got no single responses. And Boomhauer offers to help them. And Hank's like, no, but, thanks, but we'll be fine. And, Peggy landed some extra work as a notary public. And then Bill's like, you got a good man for yourself. And then Bill realizes what he said. And then Hank's like, what did you say? And Bill's already like run away and trying to climb over the fence. At the house, Bobby is quizzing Luann. It's like, okay, so propane is A, flammable, B, inflammable, or C, none of the above. Which is funny because there's only two options, so why is there none of the above? But it's like, okay, I know this. Let me think. You can't eat propane. So and then Hank's like, it's flammable. It's like, I could have gotten that. And he's like, you never would have gotten that. Hank's back at home. He's like in his bathrobe, just kind of chilling, watching TV, watching the soap opera, and he's like, "How could such a good cop be such a bad priest?" And then Peggy comes in talking about, "Oh, help." Peggy's like, "I went against my better judgment and got Mrs. Throckmorton or notarized her will. I hope those cats can take care of Adele or whatever it was." And it's like, Hank, are did you iron my clothes for tomorrow? He's like, no, and I have no plan on ironing. He's like, look, we all have to pitch in on this and work together. And Hank is, not thrilled about this at all. And then he sees another Mega-Lo-Mart commercial. So we go to the Mega-Lo-Mart and Luann's there getting ready to try out for the job. And she's kind of telling herself, BTU, no bacon, no bacon, no bacon. And she's like, I'm ready to apply for the job. And then Buckley's like, I already gave the job to somebody. It turns out it is Hank.
I mean, well, you know what though? Like, I always thought about this. Like, I was thinking about this moment when I was watching it today, and I was like, this is really good on Hank. Like, he understands that he needs a job, and he's willing to suck up his pride and take this job, though he did steal it from Luann.
I mean, technically he didn't steal it, but yes, you're right. I mean, like she wasn't guaranteed the job, and let's be honest, excuse me, if you're gonna have somebody sell propane and it's gonna be Hank or Luann, you want Hank there.
Well, do you think someone else would have taken it from Luann? I feel like,
Maybe.
but Hank's now working for Mega-Lo-Mart.
Yep. After the break, we see Hank at home and he's getting ready to go to work, and Luann's kind of talking to him negatively, saying like, "Oh, well, so you're going to go sell propane? Well, good luck with that because I took your car keys and flushed them down the toilet." Hank gets into his truck, drives away, and then Peggy comes out and it's like, "Luann, have you seen my car keys?" At Mega-Lo-Mart, Hank's going through his training, and Buckley's like, "Oh, so have you worked for Propane before?" And Hank's like, "Well, I was assistant manager at Strickland Propane for 15 years." And it's like, "Huh, okay, well, here's your badge." And he has a trainee badge, and it looks like all the teenagers, at least from what we can see, have seniority over the older people. Um, Another teenager comes up and he's like, he's doing the, hey, what chicken butt, why chicken thigh, that thing, and it's really upsetting Hank because it's so juvenile. And then Buckley's like, okay, go to the parking lot and put up these posters for a Chuck Mangione concert, and he reluctantly goes. At dinner, Bobby is like, Dad, I thought you hate Mega-Lo-Mart. He's like, I do, but you are working there? That's right. Are you still married to Mom? And then Peggy's like, of course she is. It's not so bad, Hank. You get to wear that smart vest, and with that trainee badge, you can make mistakes, and it's almost like a get out of jail free card. And Hank's like, "Oh, that's great. No, it's all great news. Why don't we just go out dancing then?" And Peggy's like, "I'm sorry. I'm trying to be supportive. I'm just not used to you failing." And they rush out of the room, and Bobby's sad. He's like, "So no dancing?" In the garage, Luann is practicing her manger baby sketch, and Hank goes up to try to apologize, and she ignores him, but then does like a passive aggressive story about about somebody stealing the job that her boyfriend gave her or promised her. So yeah, It's a little tense at the Hill House. I kind of feel for Hank because I think a lot of this, you'll see it a little later in the episode too. A lot of this is like the sentiment of the time because back then, when Walmart was starting to become a little bit more prolific than it was. Like I don't think I'm young enough to where I remember in San Antonio where there weren't a lot of Walmarts, and then remember them popping up everywhere. And this is like in the '90s. I guess I'm old enough to remember being young when that happened, and a lot of people getting upset because it was closing down intentionally, unintentionally closing down a lot of small businesses because they could sell tools at a cheaper price and T-shirts and stuff like that, and so a lot of Main Street couldn't stay open, and a lot of people wound up having to work there and whatnot. So I think this episode's trying to capture that feeling.
I mean, I feel like that's even the same story. Like you get that today. You know what I mean? Like big business coming into small town. I feel like that story still resonates today. But I also remember. I feel like I've always had a Walmart, but I remember it being. Oh wait, no, I remember when Walmart first moved in. Actually, it was really weird. Man, it's so weird to think about a time before Walmart.
I know it feels like it's always there. But yeah, there was a time I do remember. I remember there being a proliferation of Kmart's in San Antonio, and now there's no Kmart in San Antonio. Um, there hasn't been probably for 20 some odd years. Uh, but then I also, but then I remember not being Walmart's. Then all of a sudden, Walmart showed up when I was, I don't know, probably 10 years old or something like that. I don't remember exactly when, but it was somewhere in the '90s.
Oh man, I used to love Kmart, and now like, are they all gone?
I saw some in New Zealand. I don't know, but this was like back in I don't know 5 6 years ago. So I don't know if that's still the case.
Man, I loved like Kmart was a very niche store. Like we didn't go there often, but when we did, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm in a new place. I was always fascinated with
Mm-hmm.
like the blue light special. I don't know if you remember that,
Mm-hmm. I
but
do.
I was always fascinated with that. But you know, it's interesting. It's interesting thinking about retail stores when you're a kid and then now being an adult who's worked in a retail store before, how different it is than what you imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the world definitely seems different when you get older and you can like compare backwards. Back at the Mega-Lo-Mart, Hank's in the break room and two teenage girl workers show up, and they kind of act like what you'd expect a teenage girl, like, oh, is Ron? Can you ask Ron if she could sit with Kelly during the concert? Oh, shut up! And then giggling and stuff. Hank's like, I'm gonna find the grown-up break room. Hank's greeting a guy is like, "Welcome to Mega-Lo-Mart," and the guy just Hank gives him a balloon, and the guy just pulls out a key and pops the balloon and walks away. And the one of the guys comes up, and they're like, "Oh, don't worry, it happens. You just get used to it." And this guy used to own a brake drum shop, but now his business went under due to Mega-Lo-Mart. Now he works at the auto department, and it's like, yeah, there's no Main Street doesn't exist anymore. The only place you'll find a Main Street is in Disneyland, and good luck buying a gun there. And they go to this bait shop, or I guess the sporting goods section where the bait shop guy works, who used to own a bait shop, and they're all talking about how much they hate Mega-Lo-Mart because when we used to run our own business, we had dignity and yada yada yada, and now we're taking orders from kids. All of a sudden, some guys come up and like, hey, break it up. You guys are need to get back to work, and hey, you're not wearing your trainee badges, and they're like, I won't do it, I have 20 years experience, I'm not wearing a trainee badge, and they all kind of reject, and they're like, okay, fine, I'll find three people who will wear it. So the guys put it back up, and Buckley is dragging a propane tank improperly by the nozzle, and Hank runs up, like, oh, don't do that, you're going to cause a gas leak, and they're like, Buckley is all of a sudden like, hey, aren't you supposed to be setting up Mr. Mangioni's dressing room with pear slices and 2% cottage cheese? Hank is, I think this is Hank's breaking point because now at nighttime we see behind the Mega-Lo-Mart the three guys plus another guy, all older guys, maybe Hank's age, if not older, are like, we need to protest Mega-Lo-Mart because Mega-Lo-Mart's slogan is like America loves Mega-Lo-Mart. They're like, we need to show them America doesn't love Mega-Lo-Mart. And so they're like, we're gonna disrupt the Chuck Mangione concert with the kazoos. It's funny because at first when Hank's talking, it sounds like they're gonna do a major plan, like they're going to spray paint the building or something like that. But then Hank's like, we're gonna disrupt the concert with this, and he pulls out kazoos and like, why kazoos? He's like, well, they're portable, they're annoying, and you could buy a pack of them for $3 at Mega-Lo-Mart. And one of the guys is like, oh, that's great. We'll be like Queer Nation. And then they're all like, oh, and then it's like, or the Boston Tea Party. Yes, yes, like the Boston Tea Party. In the garage, Luann apologizes to Hank for being mad and like kind of wants to put it behind her. And Hank's like, well, I was the better candidate. And it's like, yeah, yeah, you were. Oh, I need a ride to Mega-Lo-Mart in the morning because I'm going to break up with Buckley. And I'm guessing that is her plan to I don't know if it's to punish Hank or to punish Buckley or both, but probably somewhere around both. The next day, Hank is getting dressed and getting ready to go to work and stuff. Hank arrives at Mega-Lo-Mart, and Peggy is getting ready to find a seat with Bobby for the event. Or I don't think Bobby's there actually. But anyway, she's getting ready. She's like, Hank, I saw the kazoos. I've been a substitute teacher enough to recognize mutiny when I see it. And Hank's like, don't try to stop me. And Peggy's like, Hank, don't blow. If you blow, you'll tear the wax paper. Hank passes out the kazoos to people, but he says he has something bigger in store for Chuck Mangione. He walks inside the building. Inside, you see Buckley, pulling propane tanks around, and Luann's there breaking up with him. And all of a sudden, you see that there's like a hissing sound coming from the propane tank. I guess you would hear that, not see it. But Hank goes into the break room to get a bag which has an air horn in it. So he's not doing anything super insidious, even though it sounded like he was. The concert starts, and all of a sudden a banner comes down that says Mega-Lo-Mart destroys small business, and the guys play the kazoo. As Hank is getting ready to walk outside, he smells gas, and he's like, oh no, there's a gas leak. And then we get an outside shot, and all of a sudden see the Mega-Lo-Mart explode. And then Boomhauer's like on the phone trying to get 911, but he's talking in his Boomhauer way, but then he's also talking super fast. So like, sir, I can't understand you. You're gonna need to talk slower. So he's like, dang ol' Mega-Lo-Mart, dang ol', things like that. And it goes to be continued. So yes, this is a two-parter. And this is also the last episode of the season. So this is also doubles, if you will, as as like a cliffhanger, because we're not going to get to know what happened until after the summer. I mean, when this originally aired, now we can figure out instantaneously, but at the time you didn't know until after summer.
That's true. Yeah, wasn't Who Shot Mr. Burns came out before this, right?
I don't know, to be honest. It might have.
Because this also was like the someone's gonna die. You know what I mean? Like I remember the advertisement of this being like, not all the characters make it or something like that. Like someone was supposed to
Yeah,
die is how they advertise it, but you don't know who because there's so many people left inside the building. Well,
yeah,
not so many people. It's kind of just like a handful of our characters.
yeah, yeah. Who Shot Mr. Burns did air before this, if I'm not mistaken.
So I feel like this was playing off of like the success of that. Because man, Who Shot Mr. Burns was. I feel like I was always talking about it as a kid. I don't know if because I was always talking about it, everyone around me was talking about it. But I remember everyone had a theory.
Well, to be fair, even that was a ripoff of something. The Who Shot Mr. Burns was a ripoff of Who Shot JR from the TV show Dallas, because that was like, at the time, that was the one of the largest cliffhangers in TV history, and it was on airplanes, and people were talking about it on the news, and like, who shot JR? Who shot JR? And so the Who Shot Mr. Burns was meant to be a play on that. But yeah, it was definitely for our generation, because Dallas predates us. For our generation, the Who Shot Mr. Burns was the Who Shot JR.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just, man, I wonder if I now, because now I know better that like, of course it's not gonna like. Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything about who it's gonna be, but I feel like now I know who it's obviously not gonna be.
Well, yeah. Now we know who it's not going to be because we know who we see in later episodes, obviously. We also
Well,
know,
yeah.
like, even at the time, you kind of realize who it's going to be or not going to be because it's like, this is season 2. They're not going to kill off Hank, the patriarch of the episode or of the show, in the second season.
But I wonder, like, I was like, we were young back then. I don't remember. We were like kids, right? What year was this?
Yeah, this was like 97, I want to say.
Okay. I wonder if Kid Me was like, Hank might die, guys. Because you don't know better.
Yeah, I mean, like if they were to air it today, brand new or whatnot, my money would have been on Buckley the whole time, or Chuck Mangione, because like they're not going to kill off primary characters from the show, not this early anyway. Like that's super jumping the shark. Like I could see like when ratings are going down and maybe they're on season 11 or something, they really need to spice things up. But then even then, I think it'd be a semi minor character. Like it would be like Bill or something and not Hank or Luann or not the Hill family.
Yeah. I mean, man. And then a protest with kazoos, that's totally Hank, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Disruptive, but like not super disruptive, like not no property damage or anything is involved. Which knowing Hank, that's important to him. But yeah, we end with a cliffhanger. You know, Hank has to work for Mega-Lo-Mart. He hates it because one, he finds it demeaning, and the way they present it, it definitely is demeaning. The way they present it, you know, it's like, hey, I have all this experience with propane, and I'm being treated like, you know, a 16-year-old kid who came in here for his first job and all that stuff. But then also, I think a lot of it is just them having been used to having more freedom. When you get into like that a big corporate environment like that, there's so much bureaucracy and rules and everything that sometimes it just doesn't seem like a fun experience for seasoned professionals, if you will. And you know, he decides to do a protest or a mutiny, and all of a sudden, and I think it also looks bad too because at the same time, or I guess in the context of the show, it looks bad. Like we know what happened. We saw Buckley drag the thing and it go loose, but to people on the outside, they probably see Hank go inside. He's disgruntled, and all of a sudden the building blows up. So they probably think the worst.
Well, I'm not going to say anything because I know we're doing the other episode next week, but I've got thoughts. I got thoughts about that.
I don't think Hank, like personally, I don't think Hank could even bring himself to do that.
I mean, sometimes we unconsciously do things, right? Like,
True.
you're so upset, but we shall see.
Yeah, let's we can end this one here because there's not much to talk about. We don't want to give away the next episode, so join us next week when we talk about the second part of this two-parter, Death of a Propane Salesman. Until then, I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy.
Bye.
Bye.